I can't hear you.
You can't
I
hear
got you, buddy.
me. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
I'm doing great as well,
I'm
actually.
assuming we're live, so we better say hello to all the folks out there. Hello.
Hello, folks. I see we got a bunch on the list already out here and to the right side. So, Red Fisher's there too.
I saw that.
PH Red with us. That's awesome.
Hey, it's a sign of the times. We're in a pandemic. Everybody shows up.
I love it.
So let's start by certainly welcoming anybody that's out there to this. We did it at last minute because we wanted to run a bunch of tests, which is basically what we're doing with this episode. We want to see sure everything is working because obviously it's being run from a remote location. Pete is at his house. I'm at mine. The engineer's at his. This is all new to us. We're used to doing live in a studio where we've got everybody together. So bear with us if we make some mistakes along the way.
And our engineer is none other than Stephen Labadie, the your man behind the glass in the radio show. So
That's right. We're going to be bringing him on here throughout the program. Whenever he screws up, we're going to make sure he shows his pretty little face to everybody.
yeah, so we got a people looking in here. That's cool. Dennis from Toronto. We got Outdoorsy Gal, Dave Wilson, Todd Wilson, Wolf Roberts. Love that name, Wolf Roberts. That's awesome. JM Red, of course, Big Red. BB's Fishing Show. We got all kinds of people. That's cool.
So before we start, first of all, I just wanted to say we haven't done a whole lot on our website yet because, as some of you know, it's been rather busy there the last few days. We'll get into that in a minute. But first of all, I wanted to extend our thoughts and prayers from the entire Fish'n Canada Outdoor Journal family to the folks in Nova Scotia who last Saturday were blown away, literally, by an incredible story that, it resonates with us even more so because we were there shooting not that many months ago. Our last episode of last season was shot in Economy, Nova Scotia, which is one of the communities that was involved in this thing, and it's just a terrible, terrible tragedy. And we just wanted to make sure we let you know, all of you down there, you've got our thoughts with you. It's terrible, terrible. So,
and you know what? And we know. I think the whole country knows how good the East Coast people are. I mean, they really are salt of the earth. I mean, for that to happen anywhere is horrible, but just those guys are so good people out there. You know what I mean? They live a great lifestyle. They're very happy-go-lucky. It's a tragedy. I mean, no matter where it is, but we really feel for you guys.
yeah, it's not that it could have happened someplace else and it wouldn't have been a problem, but there, you're right. Those people are just so nice. But anyways, we're with you, and obviously during the pandemic, it makes things even worse because we spend more time dwelling on what happened. But let's put it, as much as we can put it behind us. Let's try and move forward and leave it at that. So, go ahead, Pete. Sorry.
No, I said 10-4. Absolutely.
So here we are. Peter and I have spent the better part of 35 years together. And I would say that during that 35 years, we've probably been physically together more than we have with our wives.
I thought you were going to say more than we like to.
So, so when I tell you that this is one of the weirdness of what's going on here is not having Pete live with me.
Yeah, you're right.
A very strange, very surreal time in my life, but
yeah, and this is the first time we've ever worked from home. Like it's always been to the office, any shooting to do, any work, any computer work, setting up shoots, anything. It's always been in the office. So this is very new to us, as it is to everybody. I mean, I'm sure most of these people watching right now are from their home right now too, that are off of work or whatever they're doing. So
feel free to reach out and to let us know how you're coping and what are you doing? What are you doing that's getting you over the hump every day? Because quite honestly, I'm starting to have a hard time with it, but share with us what you're doing, and Stephen will let us know, and he'll put them up on the screen, and we'll try.
There's stuff on the screen there right now. We're gonna have to try and stay ahead of it. Maybe when you're talking, I'll look, and when I'm talking, you can look, and we'll try and.
You're assuming I can see it.
That's why we both have glasses on. Obviously, you can see our age is hitting us. We're wearing glasses now, where we don't on the. But we do. We have sunglasses on TV. But
Outdoorsy gal saying so cool that you're doing live streaming now. It is very cool. It's a sign of the time. Keep in mind something else about Pete and I is that we have been doing pre-taped or recorded productions now for 38 years. And although people don't truly, unless you've done what we've done, you really don't really grasp what happens there. We produce something in one calendar year, and then we see a finished version of it going to broadcast in the next calendar year. And it's kind of a weird thing, when people ask you, hey, I saw you last week. For example, I just had somebody recently send me a message saying, hey, I watched you and your grandson last week. You were in the Bay of Fundy fishing. That happened last year. So it's kind of a weird kind of deal. But this is live. It's like our radio show, which is live as well. So this is totally different, man. It's very exciting.
I see one of the comments, our buddy Ted Putnam from up at Hawk Lake Lodge. All he says is booze, lots of booze.
Attaboy, Teddy.
Teddy, you're the bomb.
Make us proud.
Oh my God.
Ted owns, I don't mind saying this publicly, arguably the best walleye camp. We'll call it the camp. I'd rather think of it as a resort, posh resort. He owns one of the best walleye remote operations in the world, Hawk Lake and Hawk Lake Lodge. A once in a lifetime. Yes, he's expensive as hell. I mean, let's not even hide the fact. He's probably the most expensive place on the planet. Well, let me tell you something. Going to Hawk Lake Lodge for even a 3-day long weekend will stay with you the rest of your life. Not just the fishing, which is extraordinary, but the food, the amenities, the ambiance.
Happy hour.
Happy hour. Now you're cooking.
Happy hour. And you know what Ann said is a walleye lodge. We'll go on this real quick. This was off script right here, but the smallmouth fishing there is second to none. Giant pike, and he's got huge lake trout that if you want to try them, you can try that. And it's all real. It's not easy, but it's really good. And you'll get on them. You'll have a trip of a lifetime for sure. So,
anyways, without getting off topic too much here, and we're going to experience some bumps doing these things, right? Cool. So bear with us.
That'll be fun. Yeah, what the hell?
First thing I wanted to deal with on my list, and I know you've got a list as well, Pete, but let me start with, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, to be honest with you, but I do want to address it, and that is what happened last Wednesday, April 15th, 2020. We posted a blog that I authored and I take full responsibility for. And by the way, thank you very much for, while I was out in the battlefield taking all those shots, what were you doing? You were hunkered down in the bunker somewhere? I didn't hear a word from you.
Drinking whiskey, like Ted.
That's what I figured you were doing.
What do you think I'm going to do?
But anyway, so we put
phone calls that everybody was pounding me with after you posted that. My phone was busy for 3 days.
I want to address, because I don't think I've done it so far. I want to address what motivated me to write that blog. And I think, it's not an excuse. It's not anything other than, me maybe venting on a brand new toy that we unveiled here today. I was, two things happened. Number one, I was under the belief 110% certain that the government was going to do the right thing and step in and postpone trout opening in southern Ontario. I won't tell you why I was 100% certain, but believe me when I tell you that it was 100% certain. And so that was factor one. Factor two, I had received a message earlier that week from an old friend of mine who I hadn't talked to in quite some time, who told me about his father that had succumbed to COVID-19. And it just got me all thinking about the whole trout opening, all that stuff. And so, anyways, regardless, I was fully charged with all kinds of emotions. And so I put pen to paper and probably, although the messaging I think got out, I think the message got out, it definitely lit up the fishing industry, which is what we had intended to do with that piece. Um, but it ignited an element out there within our community. And don't think I'm naive enough to know that the internet is a wonderful little pristine, Pegasus riding on a unicorn, farting rainbows. I know that that's not the case. Okay. But I didn't really expect it to be that way within the fishing community. So that was maybe my shock and surprise. And, the rest is history as to what happened. But I don't take back my feelings when I wrote that piece and the way it was, the timing and the way it was put out there. I think it was bang on. Now, the government didn't close or postpone or suspend the opening of trout. However, most of the municipalities that have one of these rivers running through it have. So it happened anyway. So I guess the bottom line is I didn't have to do that. It would have taken care of itself, but I just felt responsible and compelled to do it. And I did it. And that's it. That's all I got to say on that subject. It is what it is. I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we took a stand when nobody else seemed to want to take a stand, including the government. And so, good. And unfortunately, innocent bystanders like Mr. Bowman there, he had to hunker down under his blankets while I was getting shot out in the field.
You say what you want, pal. You have no idea what I was doing. No idea what I was doing. Okay. I stuck up for your ass like you have no idea. Okay.
Well,
Okay. It might not have been written down, but there was a lot of words across phone lines, et cetera, et cetera. So,
and I want to thank all the people that did stand up for us. We really appreciate all the
we get
kind
no
words.
on the chat board. No need to apologize. No need. Everybody's saying they agree.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
It is. I'll give you my take on my year so far, my pandemic year. As I think people would know that I can stay right now that there's nobody listening to here or that will watch this that likes fishing more than me, loves fishing more than me. You may like it as much. I may like it as much as you, but you don't like it more than me. Fishing is my life. It always has been and always will be. So come around, this every time this time of year, I'm always planning my outings, be it Fish'n Canada outings and my own. So my buddy and I, in about February, we're thinking about when we can get out. We go, Lake Ontario is going to be a great place to get out because we can beat the crowds. We'll get out, troll some browns, some rainbows, maybe Lakers. We can put it in the Whitby Harbor as soon as it thaws out. And this is just when the pandemic was starting around here. No bans on anything, nothing like that. And it was funny because we're ready to go. We were ready to go for the weekend. We were going to go out, and the weather was looking perfect. The lake was calm. The launch was open. Whitby Harbor was open. We were going to troll from Whitby to Oshawa, back and forth, see if we can get some browns, whatever. And I said to him, I wonder if it's a good idea with this pandemic stuff starting up, if we should be going out there or not. And his wife said, you know what, guys, you guys can catch all the fish you want, but what happens if something goes wrong with your boat? What happens if the Coast Guard has to come in? What happens if the cops are called? What happens if somebody else is called? I thought, wow.
Yeah.
Everybody's saying, I'm fine going fishing. I'm not going to spread the pandemic. But if we broke down and either one of us was infected or somebody in that boat back then had no idea and they were infected, all of a sudden the spread started. So I said, no, we're not going to go for it. Let's just leave it for now and we'll see what happens. Now everything starts to build up more and more. Then we got into the Port Hope. We put up a post yesterday, I think it was, about Port Hope with the municipalities. Now, I see some BC. I'm going to rant on here a bit, and just a little bit, so bear with me. Some people from out of town, BC, anybody from non-Southern Ontario, non-GTA, and you got to realize that what crowded fishing to you might be seeing one other person on a river, 100 yards up or 200 yards and say, oh, God, I don't want that to happen. I'm telling you, Stephen, maybe can you put up that picture that we put on the post? I know Stephen will probably, he has there. That little picture right there.
That's nothing.
That's nothing. That's a shot I took on the Upper Ganney probably a week or two into the season years ago. But that little cluster or group of guys in the middle there, okay, that going through the town of Port Hope, for instance, one of the major Ganaraska River, the major spawning rivers, that happens on opening day for thousands of yards, for miles. Okay, that crowd of people. Now, I lived in Port Hope for many years, so I know for a fact. I went opening morning, opening day for years upon years. I lived 5 minutes from the river, and I eventually stopped going there because of the crowds, but not just because of the crowds, because of the idiocracy that happens on there. Because you have so many good anglers that are wanting there to get out for the first fish of the year and catch a trout, and God love you, that's why I went. But when you're fishing, listen to this: when you're fishing for trout, and literally whiskey bottles or beer bottles come rolling by your feet or out where you're fishing, because that's what goes on there too. There's a lot of partying at midnight and so on, and these guys just get wasted, and they're not there for the fishing. They're there to party their asses off, right? And when you start pulling your float out of a way of a whiskey bottle floating down the river, and happening more than once, and it happens quite a bit through that first day, that ain't fishing anymore. So I literally quit. I didn't even go there anymore. I stopped going to the Ganney, 5 minutes from my house. So I'd go and try and find some isolated stuff. So that's what it's like there. So when you want to stop, when you want to physical distancing, let's talk about with fishing. Well, you can't. If it was to be left open, it was going to be a shit show. It was going to be horrible.
And we had a few of you who wrote in saying, yeah, but I fish those rivers and streams, and where I fish, I don't see anybody. Well, that may very well be the case. First of all, I don't know what river you would be fishing that is in southern Ontario that dumps in the north shore of Lake Ontario, that unless you're fishing way up river, I don't know where you would be that you don't see anybody else. But even so, that's fine. That may very well be the case. But unfortunately, that's not the majority of people who will be on the rivers starting at midnight tonight.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just not the case. What you have to understand, for those of you who are, from other parts of the country, who when we wrote that, you wrote to us and said, I don't understand what you're talking about, shoulder to shoulder. Well, you have to appreciate the fact that these rivers have got a big migration of fish moving through them, but those fish aren't just scattered throughout the entire waterway. There are any one of these big rivers, whether it's Ganaraska or the Beaver or Port Credit or any of those, there are only select areas that hold the majority of the fish, as there are in any body of water, a lake even. And the anglers know where they are. It's not a big secret. Those same little holding areas hold those fish year in and year out. There's people who've been going to these rivers for 20, 30 years, fishing that same group of fish. Well, those pockets are small. There are only maybe 5 or 6 prime locations in that bend or at the end of that riff or at the top of that eddy. There's only 4 or 5, 6 prime locations to fish from. Now, imagine putting 100 people, 200 people, 300 people in that one spot. Well, that's what happens. It happens every year. That's what we were talking about. One of the mistakes I made in that piece, by the way, and my vision, my judgment was clouded when I wrote it. I was thinking that everybody understood that was directed at Southern Ontario. It was directed at our local rivers here. In no way, shape, or form did that apply to somebody up in Espanola or up in the Kenora area. Absolutely not. It's a totally different world up there. And I didn't separate the two, and I should have. And for that, I apologize before. I'll do that again. This was strictly Southern Ontario. And the simple reason is that I would like to get back to some sort of normality sooner than later. And so we are making our sacrifices. Pete and I are not going out on the road. We'd be out shooting this time of year. Well, we've got nothing scheduled for
first time in history, we have 0 shoots set up right now for this year's Fish'n Canada show.
And so, we're trying to, and that's why I can't understand why somebody would take objection to that philosophy and say that I was selfish for putting that out. I think that's the part that hurt me personally. I mean, aside from some pretty ugly words, some of the stuff that most of you aren't even aware we took as far as fallout from the thing are pretty bizarre. I want to get into some of that a little later on in this piece because I want to talk about some of the mental health issues that are connected. And believe me, there are some folks on my list here now that weren't there prior to last Wednesday, April 15th, who are now on my list that I need to talk to the Minister of Mental Health about. So just I'll leave it at that. How's that?
The other one I can quickly talk about that people can't relate to is the Bay of Quinte opener, and that's in a week from like tonight, a week from midnight tonight. So that's the opening. Quinte is a week earlier, zone 20 basically, but it's Quinte that everybody walleye fishes in. So it's opening up a week before the rest of Southern Ontario opens up, which is a week before the rest of Northern Ontario opens up. Well, the Bay of Quinte, by it being a sort of a gift that the MNR gave to us years ago, hey, we'll give you this one a week early. Great idea. It enhanced tourism immensely, tourism dollars, et cetera, and it gave us a shot at some fish. That place is almost, let's say, Deserano to Trenton to Belleville is almost on a par with Port Hope, Skanaraska River when it comes to boat launches. Okay, I've seen like at midnight on normal conditions. Now it's all closed down, and that's a good idea they did it too, because on normal conditions, it is so congested with trucks upon trucks and boats and cars and boats and just people that are wanting the boat launches lined up forever. People are all launching into one boat launch, and you're talking hundreds of boats, which was thousands of people, all trying to get in at the same time. They're in a lineup like that. If you think there's going to be 6 foot distance between everybody touching the dock, touching the boats, touching the ropes, touching everything, you're wrong. And it's unlike anything you've ever seen. It's like a parade at a boat launch. It's like you see a big bass tournament or something like that in the U.S. It's like that. It's crazy. So for that, like I go there every year. I've been doing it for 30 years. I've been going to the Bay of Quinte on opening walleye. I'm not going to go this year because I mean I know I can't anyways. I don't think. But even if I had a private launch, I don't even think I'd go. I'm not sure yet. I haven't heard of any private launches. It's all closed down. If it was open, I wouldn't go on it just because of that reason. There's so many.
This is all under the assumption that you believe we're in a crisis here, because that's the other thing I wanted to just quickly touch upon. Obviously, by the way we have been conducting ourselves and the way Pete and I talk, we have bought into the pandemic thing, right? We firmly believe that there are people really dying. We really believe that globally speaking, we're under attack. We bought into that. There's folks who haven't bought into that. There's no changing that part, and I'm not going to even go down that road. But for those of us who have bought into it, hunkering down means exactly that, hunkering down. So we've all given up tons. We all have. We have given up tons, and there's a lot more that we're going to have to give up here in the days and maybe weeks, and I hate saying months to come. Fishing is a very small part of that. It's a big part of our lives. We're going to really miss it, and it's hurting us not being able to do it, but it's such a big picture that when you hold fishing up against it, it doesn't eclipse it whatsoever. So bear with us. We'll get through it.
Yeah, Ted Putnam says, my lodge may not open this summer, but at least I sleep well knowing that in case others will not be in danger as a result of that. So yeah. Ted, it's his business, that's his life, right? So and then I got another great comment from Beluga. He said boobies. I like that one too. Boobies. That's it. Oh, that's good.
So anyways, that's unless we've got something else that we'll throw up here along the podcast about that, we'll try and move on. I want to talk to you briefly. This is the first time we've had an opportunity to speak to you publicly about what Pete and I do and how we work within the confines of the Fish'n Canada show, and even the Fish'n Canada show itself. Over the last week, we've had a lot of comments about the show and opinions about the show, and people have taken a stand one way or the other about the show. Let us tell you a little bit about the show that you might not be familiar with. First of all, the program was conceptualized in 1986. It went to air in I believe, and I could be wrong, it's all on our website, but it went to air, I believe, in 1988. It at that time, by the way, it went to air on an obscure little single station that was transmitting out of Brandon, Manitoba at the time, and it was called Global. It was just a little channel, and they were the only ones that would give us some airtime. And so that's where we started the whole thing. Of course, as you know, Global since then has gone on to become this massive network. And in fact, at any given time, arguably it is in the top 2 networks that we have in this country. And I'm proud and happy to say that we have been with them for, I think, the better part of 30 years. Except for one little stint. We did a 5-year stint with CBC. I think that was in 90, I want to say 90 or 91, Pete. We started and we spent 5 years with them. And that was a great ride. That's a whole story unto itself.
Yeah.
But we've been with Global ever since. And we owe them a lot for helping us establish the brand. The brand that I'm talking about now, the Fish'n Canada brand, is the most watched, not fishing show. It is the most watched television show at 8 o'clock Saturday morning in this country. Has been for the last 8 years. More people watch the Fish'n Canada show between 8 and 8:30 Saturday mornings in Canada than any other program, bar none. And that's because of you, obviously.
And let me interject here for a second. It seems like everybody that has a TV show boasts their own ratings, and they can almost tell the world hey, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other, I'm Bobby Dazzler, I have it all. But we get the
Bobby Dazzler, I love it.
We get the actual ratings. We pay a handsome price tag for the ratings to see what is real and what is not out there. So what Ange is saying right there is real, folks, and it's as per legit.
Yeah, so these are numerous numbers, or you're probably more familiar with them as Nielsen's, but Nielsen's, in fact, changed their name 8 years ago in Canada. It's still Nielsen's owned. In the US, it's still called Nielsen's. Here in Canada, they changed to Numeris. And so this is the only real rating systems that we've had in this country. I would arguably the only. There are a couple of other smaller ones that really are not recognized, but it's been the only way of measuring television ever since I've been in the business. And so when they tell us these are the numbers, these are the numbers. And regardless, because there's also people out there who will tell you, well, numbers, you can do anything you want with numbers. Yeah, you can do anything you want with numbers, but the bottom line is we're all measured by the same tool, right? It's the same numbers. So the fact that we can boast this about the Fish'n Canada show makes both of us and the entire Fish'n Canada crew very proud. But you guys are the reason for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't do that without you, for sure. I see we got Frank from Ugly Pike on, buddy.
Yes, I saw that.
You saw that? Right.
The reason I brought that up is that a couple of the messages this week said to me in particular, and by the way, I take the heat for all this because I'm the one who orchestrated it. Nobody else here at Fish'n Canada had anything to do with what happened last week. That was on me, and that's it, right? But a lot of us took heat from some people saying, "Don't forget how you got here and who got you here," and we don't forget. Believe me, when I made that comment in my apology letter saying that we found out this past week that maybe we don't own the Fish'n Canada brand like we thought we did. Maybe the ownership has been moved into the hands of the viewers, which clearly it has. And that makes me even happier and more proud than I already was, if that was even possible. The fact that you've taken ownership of our brand is just wonderful. And we appreciate that. And we'll continue doing what we can for as long as we can. Obviously, there was also word about retirement spoken during this week, and obviously, retirement is something that will eventually happen to all of us. one way or the other. At some point, we're all retired, myself included. I just don't know when. And I don't think I'm quite ready to do that yet. So to answer the few of you who said maybe it's time for me to retire, maybe it is. Who knows? I'm just not there yet. You'll have to forgive me. But when I am, you'll be the first to know.
I got you. Want to? Here's one that makes us feel our real age. Ange Thomas says, "My dad used to watch you guys when you first started, and has passed down the torch to me. Love watching you guys." So there's a dad watching. We get it sometimes at sportsman shows where there'll be my dad, my grandfather, and myself. We get that so many times. So we're starting to show our age, buddy. Just to let you know.
You know what's really cool? And it still is a big turn on for me. And Pete, you just alluded to when we're at the live events. I really get emotional when I see 3 generations of people talking to us. You got grandpa, dad, and son or daughter or whatever the case is, but 3 distinct generations, and all 3 of them say they watch the show. That blows my mind. Yes, it makes us old. Yes, for sure. But man, is that ever cool. That is just the biggest eye you can have.
Absolutely. We should try and get the. You keep going, Angela. Look at some of these questions.
Okay, just quickly and finishing up about the Fish'n Canada show. So our average minute audience, meaning that every minute of every episode that we broadcast, and we broadcast 52 weeks per year, have been doing that for almost 4 decades. Every single episode over the last 6 years, on a whole, has an average of 200,000 people watching every single minute. If you put that in terms of digital exposure, if we were, for example, counting that and transposing those numbers to Google Analytics, what it means is that there are 10 million minutes of Fish'n Canada consumed every year in this country. 10 million minutes. Just wanted to share that with you because I think it's very cool. So I've got a question for you, and now we're going to take a yes or a no to give us a bit of help here because we're at an apex. I said, that we don't know what's coming up next because we really don't. First of all, we don't know when we're going to get clear of this pandemic, meaning we don't know when we're going to produce our next show. We don't know when we're going to be able to broadcast a new episode. So I got a question for you. So currently we air our episode, our current annual season premieres on Global. And it airs on Global that series airs on Global for an entire 12-month period. And then it goes to our YouTube channel. The question to you is, would you prefer to consume the Fish'n Canada show on demand, for example, somehow on the internet, whether it's on our site, whether it's on Netflix, whether it's whatever the case may be? Would you prefer to watch the show there than a scheduled Saturday morning, 8 o'clock on Global Television Network? Albeit Global does repeat and it does have time shifting. So technically, I think you can watch the show about 7 or 8 times every Saturday at different intervals. But would you prefer to see it or consume it at your leisure as an on-demand product? Or are you cool with the traditional broadcast of the show? And if you could just give us an indication one way or the other. Over the next few weeks, we've got a lot of decisions to make. And over the next few weeks, that's going to be one of them. And so like some input from the audience, because quite frankly, without you telling us what to do, it doesn't make sense. One of the things you told us to do 10 years ago was to tell you where we're fishing. You asked us, no, you didn't ask us. You told us. You said, yeah, it's all well and good. You guys are good and we have fun and all that stuff watching you, but it means nothing to us because you've spent all your life hunting down these fish. You know where, when, and how. We don't. We have very limited time. We love fishing, but we have very limited time. It's limited usually to weekends, and it's not every weekend, and it's not for the whole weekend. If you could tell us, if you could eliminate some of the searching and tell us exactly where you were that week, not because we want to go there and rape and pillage the fishery like a lot of our peers thought you were going to do, but because we can then take that experience and transpose what we learned to our own lakes, our own areas that we fish. Because seeing is believing. And so 10 years ago, you told us to do that, and we did. We gave you the hot spots with GPS coordinates, and it's been a huge part of our program. So now we're reaching out to you again. By the way, Ted said yes for on demand.
George Cassidy says he'll watch both ways.
Yeah.
And then Patrick says, no, I look forward to my Saturday, guys.
Saturday mornings. And that's what I thought. We're going to have to, keep telling us what you want. We're going to have to evaluate it all. But so a reason I tell you this is because we listen to the audience. Everything that we do, you might think that we're these geniuses that we're able to take an outdoor show, a fishing show, and make it #1 in the country. No, you told us how to do that. You partnered up with us. And we together made it what it was and what it is. And now we need to ask you your help in this next evolution as well.
I can interrupt you. Nobody's ever called me a genius in my life. Okay. Including myself.
I call you Jethro all the time. What are you talking about?
Hey, I got my grade 3 education. Uh-huh.
So anyways, that's one of the decisions we're going to make moving forward. And we'll see. Or it might be a hybrid. Who knows? We might find that there's two elements out there: traditionalists who want to watch it Saturday mornings, and then there's people who want to have it whenever they want, right? So we may do a hybrid. We may do a little bit of both. We'll see. But definitely something's going to change moving forward. There's no doubt about
it. There's your buddy.
By the way, that's Jack from Radio World. He's always giving us 2 cents for sure. All right, so
you got a Bible there, or what the hell?
I've got a few questions I want to throw out. I knew you wouldn't be prepared. So
you got that right.
Outdoor Journal Radio is another product that we've had 28 years. I think this is our 28th year with Rogers. Yeah. Wow. Rogers has only owned it for 18 years.
Yeah.
We were with them when it was Telemedia that owned the fan. And it was, once again, it was one station owned by a media company. And we started broadcasting when it was down on Holly Street, downtown Toronto. But anyways, I'm still amazed at the number of people. Here's one who loves both shows. But I'm amazed at the number of people who don't even know we have a radio show. It blows my mind.
Well, one of the reasons is because your radio show is at 8 o'clock, starts at 8 o'clock, and your fishing show starts at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Same day.
I love it.
Like Jack says, I don't think either of your geniuses.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it, buddy. That's why we have buddies like you, right? To remind us about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm surprised at the number of people who aren't familiar with it. And we got a
different audience though too, right? You're talking about, it is a different audience, from a show sitting at your home to an outdoor show in your vehicle, more than likely, or on a radio. But I'm assuming that the numbers are higher in vehicles than anything, right? Are they?
It's a transient audience, no doubt about it. But I think radio in general is. But certainly at 8 o'clock Saturday mornings, people are going and coming. A lot of them are going to work that tune into the program. It's a different audience. But I only throw that out there because listen, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you I'm really excited about the internet. I finally think it's not a fad. It's not going to go.
I just finally got on, have you? Oh God!
So I'm embracing the hell out of it, and so we're at the point now with our digital footprint where it makes a whole lot of sense for us to take our broadcast, our distribution of our products into our own hands, and radio is one of those. And once again, same thing. If you're one of our radio listeners, I need to hear from you. What's your opinion about radio? Does it belong on broadcast, or is it time that we change it as well and bring it to this website? Is that Jack?
Look at that idiot.
Yeah, exactly. Bring it to our website and make it a podcast, or just make it a podcast period, so that people can listen to it at their leisure. These are all things that we would really like some help with, and and help make your decision.
Or a Fish'n Canada podcast as well. You know what I mean? Like that, not maybe just confine it to just fishing, because we have a strong fishing only audience too, right? So, you know, if you want a Fish'n Canada podcast, we can. I mean, look what we're doing here right now. There's no different than a podcast, really. And Ange and I and we get subject matter from the audience, or we're bringing in ourselves, experiences we had, or whatever, and we can do a lot of that stuff. So,
anyways, that's my list. Now we can throw the list out and go off script.
Beautiful. Well, I haven't. All I wanted to do.
I knew it. What else is new? You're stumbling over.
Okay, go ahead.
No. Now I'm not going to.
No, this is your show, obviously. Go ahead.
What else is new, right?
Go ahead. You know,
what do you got?
Bobby Dazzler wants to do it again.
What do you got? Come
on. The openers. I mean, the remaining openers of fishing. I'd like to know if there's anybody from the north that's watching right now, if your boat launches are closed down like all of ours in the south seem to be, like all the municipalities are closing everything down. So, I mean, Lake of the Woods has 1,000 boat launches in the Canadian side of it, maybe. I'd like to know if they're starting to close down launches up there or not, and we're trying to.
Can I interrupt you? We have a special message we need to put up on the screen.
Yeah.
Apparently, Igor, a 38-year-old male, looking for. He's a good-looking fellow too, by the way. If he does say so himself, looking for a single female fisher person. There you go. We'll turn this into one of those, like a swap meet kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Igor, buddy, I like this. 38. Yeah, he didn't say any criteria for that woman. He asked to fish. That's all, right? Good for him. I love that.
I love it.
Yeah. So I don't know if we'll have any comments as to that. I'm assuming that they're going to be canceling closing a lot of the boat launches everywhere in the province, no matter what the MNR says or does. And now it's up to the municipalities, and they're doing that just, again, going back to the safety of people, et cetera. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Ultimately it's a shame. It's too bad that any of this happened to begin with, because anybody that's on this list here to the right, and anybody watching right now, we all love the sport of fishing. There's no doubt about it, right? It's been born and bred into us as Canadians, and it's our heritage and hunting too. So it's a shame that we are even affected by this, but it's a reality.
Yeah, I was on CBC Radio this morning doing some interviews, and one of the hosts told me that the boat launch closure is a provincial closure. It's a province-wide closure. So all of the government operated boat launches, in effect, are closed everywhere. So it's not just the south; it's all over the place.
So the government, okay, yeah.
So for whatever that's worth, and the reason that was done, by the way, has nothing to do with fishing. It has everything to do with trying to stop that mass exodus of people from big urban centers moving into their cottages or summer homes during the pandemic, right? If they're going to hunt, and think about it, listen, I agree with that. If I'm going to hunker down somewhere, I'd rather hunker down at the cottage. If I'm going to be indoors and not be able to socialize and mingle, I'd rather be at my summer home, my cottage, rather than my condo downtown. But the problem with that is that those outlying communities just don't have the infrastructure in place to take, first of all, the overflow of people. I mean, think of these small communities. Think of the grocery store, of which there's usually only one or two in that entire community. They're used to maybe providing supplies on a normal basis to, say, 2,000 people. Well, if you don't control the influx of cottagers, that population could swell to 10,000 immediately. And under normal conditions, that would be difficult for that grocer to keep enough Wheaties on the shelf. But under these conditions, it becomes almost impossible. And so the thinking was, let's try and stop people from going to the cottage. How do we do that? Well, we told them not to go. We told them that there shouldn't be, any travel of any kind unless it was to a grocery store or a medical facility. So non-essential traveling was taken off the table. The only thing else they could do is shut down the boat launches, because most of these folks want to put their boat in the water to go to cottage. And if you take that away from them, they can't. I don't agree necessarily that should have been done that way, but it was, and that's what it was for. Had nothing to do with fishing. The side effect of that, though, and what we were worried about here at Fish'n Canada is that, and Jack points out, also privately owned marinas, they were already closed because they're non-essential businesses. So those marina ramps were closed. What it did, though, and nobody thought about this, is that the folks who were going to go out trout fishing to their lake or a remote lake to do their trout opener, they had no option for that anymore. So a good portion of those decided, well, I'm going to have to go to a river, a stream, a creek. I don't know. I got to get my fix somewhere. So that just adds to the whole opening, which is tonight at midnight. And so the whole thing is kind of, and in all fairness to all the groups concerned here, whether it's provincial government, municipal entities, this is brand new for everybody. Everybody has the same wish to make the best of a bad situation and try and help society. Decisions are being made on the fly every day, every minute. There's decisions being made. They're not all going to be winners, folks. I hate to say it. They're not all going to be winners, but everybody's heart is in the right place. And in this case, I think the provincial government should have probably bailed out the municipal entities by just saying, let's go smoke fishing for a couple of days. Let's see how it goes, or at least until May 12th, when the Emergency Act is in place, and take it from there. Anyways, Patrick says I live on a cottage road, and population is up 50% right now. 50%.
Yeah.
It's double on a cottage road.
So Vince Tripp says the Algonquin Highlands and South Frontenac are keeping their launches open.
Yeah, there's a few.
So, and that's that. I'm assuming that's around the Kingston area. Frontenac, I think, is Kingston, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So I'm assuming that maybe they're private or whatever they are, and I don't know to what bodies of water they'd be on, but that's, so there are going to be some open. So there will be some people going out fishing for sure.
Let's talk about that for a minute, Pete.
What's that?
About your opinion. I know I'm never short of opinions. So let's just say, for the sake of arguing, let's just throw a number out there. Let's say that 40% of the people who normally would be on the water this weekend for trout opening, and let's use that same number. I'm going to look into the crystal ball, and I'm going to make an assumption that come mid-May, we're going to still be in some sort of a lockdown mode. So let's duplicate this for the walleye opening as well.
Yeah.
So let's say that 40% of the population in this province will adhere to the pandemic protocol, meaning non-essential travel, social distancing, isolation, and all that stuff. So 40% of the normal fishing pressure will not happen this year for trout and for walleye. What does that do for our fishery?
Well, obviously, it would be a good thing for the fishery, right? If there was less pressure, I would. Well, if that's what you're getting at, I think the number will be higher than 40%, to be honest with you. But that said, yeah, if you put less pressure on a body of water on a lake that's 5 miles by 5 miles, if you have nobody fishing on it in a year versus 1,000 boats on it for a year, it's going to be good for the body of water for sure.
Okay, that's what I would think. But I had a very interesting discussion a couple of days ago with an individual who is in the scientific community and is also a crazy, absolutely insane angler. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about that very thing. So two things he pointed out. First of all, you understand that anything that happens this year during openings, or anything that doesn't happen this year during the openings, in other words, if we're not interfering with this current season, any of the effects will not be seen for at least, depending on the species, 2, 3, 4 years down the road. So it'll affect a year class 4 years down the road in the case of walleye, for example.
Okay.
And so as we're discussing, I said, can you imagine what that's going to do to the walleye population in some of these lakes that are marginal? And he said, that's exactly what I'm afraid of. What are you talking about? His opinion is that most of the ecosystems in these lakes are perfectly balanced right now, right? the right amount of predation versus the right amount of human intervention versus the right population numbers versus the right forage for that predator fish.
Right.
He's concerned that some of these lakes, although it sounds great to take a year off and not go chasing them down and catching and consuming and all the other things that we do with fish, this guy is saying, and it's really interesting because he gave me some data that I want to verify before I put it out there. But he's saying he's concerned about some of the lakes not being able to handle the fact that there could be an increase, and not just a small increase, a drastic increase in predation on those lakes. And he's afraid of the forage base collapsing in some of these water.
You know, that makes sense. I mean, it's only 1 year as we can look at it right now. We don't know that it's going to last into another year or not. But in 1 year, it sounds kind of far-fetched almost to say, how can that happen? But I'm not a scientist, and I don't know if he is or not, so I can't, it makes sense. Ange and I fished a lake in Alberta called Calling Lake, and it was exactly what happened there. The walleye took over that lake to an extent where they were starving themselves out. They ate so much forage that they were skinny. They got rid of the forage first, and these fish were, 30 or not, let's say 27 inches long and as big around as your wrist. It was ridiculous how many, and but Ange did a trick there where he took a jig head. He says, I'm going to try and catch one without a bait on it. He took a jig head. It was a colored jig head and actually caught a walleye on a colored jig head. That's how hungry these fish were. But they were
emancipated. They were emancipated. Like they had great big huge wolf heads, remember?
Yeah.
The little wee tiny skinny little bodies. It was just,
they were starving. So that's what he's talking about right there, obviously, right? They're going to eat all their food out, and then they're going to...
Well, he mentioned the self-predation as being an issue, right? So, and now we're not talking about lakes like Rice Lake or Simcoe or these big, huge, fertile bodies. Why he was talking about secondary lakes, isolated secondary lakes where the population is perfectly balanced, and even a trickle of rain, too much rain will affect it one way or the other. Those are the lakes he's concerned about, because he was saying that what will happen, and the first thing that happens in those lakes is that predation within its own species is the first thing that becomes evident. So if there's, and taking walleye as a good example, walleye would prefer to predate on what we call panfish. They would prefer to predate on anything smaller, or certainly in a non-related family as their own. That's first and foremost. But when that's not available, they predate on themselves and do it very effectively. And that was what the concern was with this particular scientist, is that some of these small lakes cannot handle that. So I guess, it's not always golden, because the reason I bring that up is there's a lot of folks who have been saying, well, listen, if we miss this season, it's not the end of the world. Think how good it's going to be down the road. And I would like to say, yes, you're absolutely right. But yeah, it's a delicate issue.
Yeah, that's very interesting, that one.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess off camera who that was with you after this is all over.
You know who it is.
Exactly.
Brilliant man, and certainly has years and years of research behind him. So I have no reason to doubt that his thinking it may be flawed somehow, but it's on the right track, and we need to.
Ted Putnam says, if that is the case, how do you explain those lakes that go to slot limits or catch and release getting better over time? So like Ted's like 100% catch and release, which seems to be getting better and better and better over time. So
I would think those lakes do not have it's not a perfect balance on those lakes, right? They have an abundance of forage, and they also have an abundance of that particular predator. Like Ted and I'll use your lake as a perfect example. By the way, Hawk Lake is one of the few lakes, one of the few trophy lakes, true, honest to goodness walleye trophy lakes, and as Pete alluded to earlier, bass and pike trophy lakes. It's one of the few in this country that has a 100% total release policy. And when I say total, I mean the shore lunch that you have when you go to Hawk Lake Lodge. Those fish aren't from Hawk Lake. They're brought in from other lakes. That's how anal Ted is about the preservation of the gene stock of walleye and bass in that lake. But okay, those fish that you've got, Ted, are anything but starving. In fact, they're a little bit abnormal in that those great big 10 and 12-pound fish, every one that you catch, you look at that fish and you know that that fish is feeding like crazy. So whatever it is that continues to produce food for them, even though there's a total release policy in place, even though they're the apex predator in that body of water, they're not short of food. So not sure what that means, but that's a case where I think you can do anything to that lake, and it's just going to be, just keeps churning them out like crazy. You're very blessed with Hawk Lake, trust me.
Well, you know what?
Unicorn.
I think a lot of these, like I'm seeing another one here from BJJ's Fishing Show. Lady Evelyn Lake has an amazing fishery with a slot system. So these slot systems are working really well. They were brought up when I used to hear about them in the States first, in the US, and then they seemed to graduate into Canada. Finally, they started bringing them in. And usually they're on bigger bodies of water. They're on popular bodies of water. We're not saying that these slot systems don't work, because I think they really do work. I mean, some people hate them because they want to catch and keep everything they want, but those people, they just don't get it. Slot limits or 100% catch and release like Ted has on his lake, which is rare, do work depending on the lake, like Ann says, on the forage base. Most of our bigger lakes, Slave Lake in Alberta, Ontario, all of our big lakes in Ontario. I can go back. I don't know a whole lot about the other lakes. That Quebec has a bunch of big lakes now. All those big lakes, you know what? It's good to have a slot because it gets things back in order, or back to what the ministry thinks is right. So it does work. But the smaller lakes, that's where it might be real devastating, like Ann said, on that if nobody fishes, then we might be in trouble for those smaller lakes too. So have to keep that in mind.
It's something that we all need to keep awareness of and keep an eye on. I want to address one quick one that's kind of interesting, and I'm glad she brought it up. Outdoorsy gal wants to know. She's saying, that we sometimes handle fish in ways that might not be exactly proper. And not just necessarily us, but everybody as well, by putting fingers in underneath the gill plate in order to hold the fish up to get a picture, and then release the fish. And here's my take on all that. And Pete knows how I feel about it. I'm really, really picky when it comes to. I'd rather cut and hurt myself than that fish. So here's my thinking on that. And I don't want you to think, okay, there he goes again with do as I say, not as I do. First of all, well, no, because it's possible, right?
Well, I'm wondering what's going to come out of your mouth now.
No. First of all, what we do for a living is totally, totally unlike what you do as anglers. Let me explain that for a minute. If we went about our business as anglers would, you would never even see a fish. We would get rid of those fish. We would shake them off without even bringing them in the boat. However, as we said earlier on, you helped us design the Fish'n Canada show over the many years that we've been broadcasting. And one of the things you want to do is you want to see a fish. So what we have to do is, and each individual case is different. This is the important thing. No two fish catches, videotaped, and releases are the same. They're all different circumstances. Stuff happens very quickly. It's spur of the moment stuff. So no two are the same, is what I'm trying to say. In every single case, we do the very best that we can to do as little damage to the fish, get it exposed to the camera properly, and get it back in the water and swimming away as we can. There is just the only way I can just say it to you. We take, and there have been, I won't say a lot, but there have been cases where we've had to work with that fish for minutes, if not half hour, 20, 30, 40 minutes to make sure that it is totally revived before we let it loose, because just letting it loose is not going to cut it for us. But I say all of that because in most cases, most anglers don't necessarily have to do what we have to do. And when we're off camera, we don't do anything like that. Okay, not even close. But we know that in order to have a fishing show that you enjoy and that we can produce, we have to show you once in a while what these fish look like in that moment. And that's why we handle it. Having said that, putting your hands into a fish's gills or a gill area, no matter how careful you are, no matter how many times you have done it, there is still a danger that you're going to make contact with the gills. When you see us lifting a fish by the gill plate, it's because we've spent 40 years, I won't say perfecting it, but certainly we have a lot of experience on where to place that hand. As I said before, there is no good place to do it. Anytime you introduce, it's like me putting my fist into your lungs. It's not good. So I don't take this the wrong way. It's not good. But there are ways to do it that will mitigate the potential damage. And that is by just holding the gill plate, making sure that you make no contact with the gills themselves, because that's where the fish will get in trouble. But having said that, catch and release is just that. Catch the fish, bring it to the boat, reach over the boat, pair of pliers, shake it off, and off you go. That should be the way it's done. But that once in a lifetime trophy, it's difficult at best. And believe me, if we didn't have to, I'm going to throw a figure out here and see if Pete agrees with me. There have been, certainly in the last 10 years, I'm going to say 4 or 5 cases where we have killed a fish in the last 10 years that absolutely we could not get that fish back in condition to swim away from our boat. It has happened, but very rarely. We'll at the chagrin of our crew, by the way, the shooting crew, we'll stop production. If it takes us the rest of the day, we'll do it. That fish has got to be healthy before we take it back.
We've done that many times. We've done that. The guys are probably wondering and the fish are sitting upright. The fish are looking like they're ready to go, but we know everybody watching here knows that fish is going to give you kind of a telltale sign of it. And they're just saying, "What are you doing?" We'll hang on to that thing. If we turn it the right way, because the current, we want that current going into the face and not back into the gills and all that. But going back to the hand in the gill plate, I mean, it's kind of easy for us because we've done it. And all of the musky guys out there, we're all very good at it. It's basically, I can't even see my hand. You kind of, your fingertips here, this is the gill plate. If you're going in against, if you put your fingers in like this into a gill of a fish, you're going to touch something. If that's just a gill area, if you keep your hand turned in like that right there and just run it up the inside. It's very hard. It's very smooth on all fish. Walleye, bass, you don't have to do it, but it's the same thing. Walleye and muskie and pike are classical. You just keep those fingers curved and slide it in ever so slowly. It's like a perfect handle under there that you can get a hold of. And you don't jam your whole hand under your wrist. You go into your fingertips until it hits into the pocket of your hand. Then you get the good grip. You get underneath its belly and you give it a good hold. And that grip on there, even if the fish thrashes, is better for the fish, because that strong grip that you have on there is usually that fish will thrash. It still won't touch his gills, but he won't hit the bottom of the boat. And that's the problem. People are dropping fish and getting the bottom of the boat. So,
and that's a matter of opinion, because you know how I feel about that. I would prefer not to do that, and I would prefer. Jason White is asking that question, Pete. Which is better? Trying to control the fish by the plate or trying to handle the fish by holding it under the belly. And you're going to get 2 different opinions here, and both of them are right and both of them are wrong, by the way. I try, first and foremost, my goal every time that I have to hold a fish for an opportunity to photograph it, I first try and use the old subdue by the belly hold. And only when I've exhausted that will I ever go to holding the gill plate. Pete believes, and like I said, there is no right or wrong here, by the way. Holding it by the gill plate is, you're minimizing the chance of that fish flopping out of your hands and hitting the boat or shore or wherever you happen to be.
You got a 10-pound walleye in your hand.
Yeah.
You've got the belly under him, and he's not like a smallmouth. Smallmouths, they definitely succumb to the belly hold. You put your hand under a smallmouth's belly, and it's like they go into a trance. So that is the one fish that does it. The rest of them sometimes do, sometimes don't. You do that with an 8 or 10 pound walleye, and then you got the grip on the tail like that, and I'll guarantee you, a 28 to 30 inch walleye starts thrashing, chances are he's going to hit the bottom of the boat. So just to that's my opinion on it. And that's why I don't do it. Now I have small hands. I'm a small guy. I have very small hands. And this gripper here on the tail area, I can't get a good grip around that whole tail. So when he goes, you can stop it. But a lot of times when that fish goes crazy thrashing, he's going to hit the bottom of your boat too. So that's my opinion on that one.
So like I said, it's there is no wrong. Just be careful either method that you have. Holding it by the belly and the wrist or the tail is a pretty good option if you
can do it, yeah.
If you can hold on to it and to keep it from flopping. If not, the other works as well. One thing I want to bring up, and some of you are writing into us as we speak about it. The important thing is that we all have. Excuse me for a moment. Pete, can you take over? Apparently, I have an emergency here. The Countess needs me for something. She probably
yeah. I want to see her. Let's hear the business of the Fish'n Canada. I'll read a couple. So we got a couple of people here. First off, I got to go back to handlebars. I think where was it? It said, "Pass me it. Hold my beer." And then the ugly pike, like that one too. And then "Pass me a beer," says Vince. So I'm hoping you boys are actually drinking, and girls are having a beer while we're doing this. That would be most awesome. I'd like to know that we're entertaining and sitting together in all fun, and somebody's enjoying a Friday afternoon beverage. I think that's awesome.
One of the nice things about doing live is that you get all kinds of unexpected little breaks like that. But anyways, I apologize. What I was saying is whatever the method that you use for catch and release, people still to this day say to me, "Well, how do you know those fish survive? How can you guarantee those fish are going to swim away and like you say, live to be caught another day?" And my answer is very simple.
I know where you're going with this one.
It's really, I say, I can guarantee you with total certainty that 100% of the fish that I release stand a chance to survive versus the ones that you put in the cooler and put on the barbecue. Not that there's anything wrong with putting them on the barbecue. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to have anybody say, there you go, nothing wrong. No, I'm just answering a simple question. Does live release work? Catch and release work? 100% guarantee you that it works versus killing the fish. That's all I can tell you for sure. Anything else, I'd have to make up because I don't know. There's been all kinds of studies. There's been all kinds of reports. There's all kinds of opinions on it. But I know that if I killed every fish I came in contact with, that would be 100% more mortality rate than I have by releasing them all. That's all.
And we've caught fish. Everybody watching here has caught a fish that's got some kind of a mark on its mouth or whatever from before, and it's been healed over from looks like a couple of days to a couple of years. You know what? That fish was more than likely caught by somebody else and released by somebody else, and it's lived again to be caught by you. And you put it back, it could go through the whole thing again. You know what I mean? So it's a battle scar. Yeah, maybe that fish shouldn't have that mark because it was caught to begin with, but it was an accident. But the fish got put back. It's been alive for 2 years. Obviously, you haven't affected its feeding, and now you got it again, and you put it back, and it's going to go for another 2 or 3 years before it dies on natural death. There you go. You just you had no problem with that, right?
Uncle Jack says he has to go, so can we wrap up?
He's still there. He's like those trolls on the internet the other day with you. They say, "Okay, that's it. I'm out of here." Then comment. He just kept coming in.
I love it.
Those guys.
Anyways, we certainly hope we've touched, stirred some emotions in you today with some of the topics that we've talked about. We're going to try and do this on a regular basis, a more regular basis. Certainly, while we're trying to get through this pandemic, and maybe when we do get through, we'll make it a part of our regular scheduling. It's kind of cool. I think maybe what we should do going down the road is have the folks maybe send in questions that they would like us to address each week on
that's easier than reading off the side of the screen, to be honest with you, because I mean, yeah, we can get some comments and stuff like that, and you get the questions, but it's much easier about answers. If you send in stuff, we will gladly do this. This is fun.
Sure.
I love it.
In fact, let's do that. Let's just say, as of this day forward, when you have got a question that you would like us to address, or a concern, or a statement, or a topic, whatever the case may be, send us that to Fish'n Canada, info@fishncanada.com. Tell us you'd like to address. Don't even tell us you wanted us to address it on a live podcast. Just say what's on your mind, and then we'll take those every week, and we'll do a weekly thing here for now, and put them out there, and see if we can get you answers by giving us a few days notice. If we don't have an answer for you, we will endeavor to get it.
Carol Caputo says hi, by the way.
I'm sorry?
Carol Caputo says hi. She's on the. She's easy to list. Wow.
Hello, Carol.
She must miss your lovely place.
Northern Ontario.
So yeah, we will honestly, we would enjoy doing this on a weekly basis or whatever, as long as people don't get sick of it. And the more I get, I mean, we opened up with this about the pandemic and all that, but I really do get the fish talk, the info talk and all that. I love it myself. Yeah. I mean, I live for it. So if we can give you any insights as to questions being answered on techniques, on tips, on generic fishing stuff, by all means, we would love to do this. This is great.
I've got a question I'd like to address right now. How come the producers are making you look taller than me in this particular case?
Not the producers, dum-dum.
Oh, it's you.
Oh, you. You're like that movie, the museum movie. What's that museum? A Night at the Museum. Me no dum-dum, you dum-dum. There you go.
Exactly.
See?
Anyways, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully we have put last week behind us and we're ready to move forward. I also hope that everybody that goes out tonight at midnight or tomorrow morning for the trout opener has a great time, but does it with safety in mind, with the protocols in mind. Keep your distance. Try to wash your hands as often as possible, meaning that you should bring a hand sanitizer with you in the field, and avoid any social interaction. I know it's a very social time. I know the opening of trout, for me, it's a very special time of year. It's that one time of year where it is only about socializing. And we just have to remember that what should be important to us, what the priority should be, is getting healthy again, getting back to where we all need to be. And that is free and easy to come and go and do our thing again. And the only way we're going to do that is to work together. And if that means hunkering down and staying away from each other for the time being, hey, let's adhere to it. That's it. I'm good to go.
I got, by the way, Stephen, I cannot strum you a fishing song. He sees the guitar behind me. He says, Pete, can you strum us a fishing song? I might be able to rap off a couple of Black Sabbath tunes, buddy, but I don't know any fishing songs.
You know what? Maybe we'll work on that. How's that?
There you go. That'd be even good too, wouldn't it? See our inside lives of us. So there you go.
Thank you very much. We truly, truly appreciate each and every one of you, and your support this past week has been nothing short of overwhelming. And thank you very much. We both appreciate it. Everybody here at Fish'n Canada appreciates it. And like I said at the top of the program, we'll keep doing it as long as you keep watching, and we'll let retirement just sit on the shelf for a little bit longer.
See you, folks. That's cool.
You know, and carp are so awesome. They're so strong and so big and burly. Come on, baby. Light my fire. Look at that little girl. Absolutely incredible.
Welcome to the Fish'n Canada Carp Cup.
This could be exciting.
There's more people talking carp in this country now than there were a year ago, and it's growing by the day.
And we have mayhem going on here. Carp fishing, man, you gotta love it.